Thanks. Good morning, colleagues. So this morning we will consider our first conference room papers. On Wednesday, when we first met, you will recall that on COP items 8A and B, 9C and D, 10A, B and C, 15B and 16B, I had proposed that I would undertake informal consultations and prepare a conference room paper for your consideration. On COP items 9A, also item 13 under the Nagoya Protocol, 11, also item 14 under the Nagoya Protocol, 12A and B, 13A and B, 14 and 16A, I had proposed to refer further work on these items to contact groups, while on 9B I had proposed to establish a group of friends of the chair. Since our meeting on Wednesday, contact groups for items 9A, 11, 12A, 13A and 14 have met, as has the group of friends of the chair on item 9B. I will ask the chairs of each of these to report back on their progress since they began their work. I would like to begin by requesting a report from the contact group on item 12A, resource mobilisation. I would now like to ask the co-chairs of the contact group on item 12A, resource mobilisation, Mr. Shonosani Munzedzi of South Africa and Ms. Ines Fillet of Belgium, to report on their work. Shonosani, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. The contact group on agenda item 12A met twice, on Wednesday, the 7th of December, and Thursday, the 8th of December, between 19:30 and 22 hours 30, being co-chaired by my colleague, Ms. Ines Fillet from Belgium, and myself. The contact group was mandated to finalize the draft decision on resource mobilization contained in SBI 3, Recommendation 6. Considering our time constraints, the large size of the draft decision, and the considerable volume of text that had not been considered by the SBI, we suggested that the contact group should take a step back and analyze the draft decision by addressing its most important sections in blocks and guiding questions, as opposed to going through the document para by para. There was widespread approval of this approach, and it has been employed on both sessions of the contact group. During the first meeting, we considered the successor to the current strategy for resource mobilization and discussed the possibility of applying a phased approach to its development, with the first phase to be implemented between 2022 to 2024. This period will also be used to align the strategy with the GBF for consideration by COP16. Parties overall expressed wide support for this approach, even though some emphasized that the first phase of the strategy should still be commensurate with the ambition of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and instrumental in quick-starting the requisite mobilization of resources. On Thursday's meeting, we had rich and in-depth discussions on instruments and mechanisms to kickstart the mobilization of resources, while also ensuring mobilization of all resources commensurate with the post-2020 GBF by 2030. While there was convergence on many of the tools that were discussed, there were also diverging views, particularly regarding the role of GEF, and the creation of a new dedicated biodiversity fund. After listening to parties during the first two sessions and finding possible points of convergence, we are now in the process to develop a non-paper and get into the text-based discussions in the next sessions of this contact group. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Shonasani and Ines, and all members of the contact group. The contact group will meet again tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m. So the contact group on item 9A, the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, is co-chaired by Mr. Francis Ogwal of Uganda and Mr. Basil Van Avre of Canada. And I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Francis Ogwal. Francis, you have the floor.
Good morning, colleagues. This is not Francis, this is Basil. CG on item 9 on post-2020 GBF met twice on 8 December between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. and between 7:30 and 11:45. The group was mandated to go through the entire framework, focusing on resolving bracketed text without adding new text. In the first session, quick progress was made on section A and B and continued with section B bis until paragraph 12, which is where the second session picked up, completing the review of section B bis, section C, D, and E. Interventions were heard from about 33 parties, the SEPSTA chairs, and representation from the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. We are very pleased to report that the group is finally starting to make real progress. The contact group was able to clear numerous brackets, including several complete paragraphs, as well as clearing the brackets on the entire section B. Analysis showed that the number of brackets in the section reviewed yesterday has been reduced by more than 50%. We know that a small group of interested parties were effectively used to help resolve contentious issues. We thank the group for a good spirit of compromise upon which we will increasingly rely, as several paragraphs remain in brackets. We have to return to them. Our plan are to maintain the momentum over the coming days. Francis?
The contact group will meet for 2 sessions today, in the morning and in the afternoon, at 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. and in the evening, beginning at 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. We plan to continue with a review of the outcome of the small groups, moving on to the chapeau text in section B bis, and then beginning the negotiations on goals A, B, and so on. We do not want change in the sequence, which is that goal D will be reviewed along with the targets 18 and 19.1. Based on our time allocation analysis and last night's progress, we are much more confident that we will complete a full review of the framework before the high-level segment on December 17th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Basil and Francis. It's a good thing that you are interchangeable. And thank you to all the members of the contact group for all your hard work. As Francis has said, you will meet again this afternoon at 3 p.m. and at 7:30 p.m. So I would now like to hear back from the chair of the Friends of the Chair on item 9B, the monitoring framework for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, Mr. Hesikio Benitez Diaz. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The first session of the Friends of the Chair met on 8 December from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The session was attended by many parties. We had an initial discussion on the importance of ensuring that we have time during this COP to discuss and agree on the indicators in the monitoring framework, focusing on the headline indicators, and that in order to agree to the draft decision and the annexes, including Annex 1 on the indicators, including the headline indicators, and the terms of reference for the ATEC, which is in Annex 2. There needs to be a dedicated group that looks at indicators. And that is that it was likely that the members of the Friends of the Chair could form that group. There's a lot of sound. I clarified that the mandate of this group was not on Annex 1. However, many parties would like to see a group with that mandate and which could also look across the indicators to ensure the coherence of the framework as a whole. After this initial discussion, we made good progress and we were able to clean all brackets in the document. This has been posted as a non-paper. The only brackets in the document are paragraph 1, as this refers to Annex 1. But we can drop these brackets as soon as Annex 1 is agreed. However, parties could not agree to work on the text in Annex 2, the terms of reference for the ATEC, before negotiating the monitoring framework itself, as contained in Annex 1. And thus, Annex 2 could be discussed alongside the indicators. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benitez-Diaz, and we will take up the issues that you have raised in further discussion with yourself and with the co-chairs of item 9A. And thank you too for your friends who have also worked very hard. Now turning to the contact group on item 11, digital sequencing information, which is co-chaired by Mr. Galta Voigt-Hansen of Norway and Ms. Lactatia Chitwamu-Lomoni of South Africa. I would now like to give the floor to Ms. Chitwamu-Lomoni to report on its work. Lactatia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The contact group on DSI met for the first time from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Thursday with the mandate of finalizing the draft decision on DSI for COPE. The group started by hearing general reflections and comments from a great number of parties, non-parties, IPLC and stakeholder representatives on recommendation 5/2 from OEWG5. The co-chairs reminded the group that this initial session is not a negotiation and that there will be a later opportunity to negotiate the text of the recommendation. There was agreement that the DSI discussion has come a long way in the last 4 years, particularly regarding policy option archetypes, criteria for a solution, and the assessment of the policy options based on those criteria. Parties generally demonstrated goodwill towards finding a solution, although there were still divergent views on some parties regarding whether the time is ripe to agree that DSI result from the utilization of genetic resources and establishing a multilateral solution, while others consider DSI to be outside of the scope of the CBD and would prefer to study or analyze the proposed policy options further. The co-chair then asked for ideas on an approach that will lead to an agreement on the fair and equitable benefit sharing from the use of DSI in Montreal, and had a round of comments and thereafter established a Friends of the co-chairs to continue to work on fleshing out parts of recommendation 5/2. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Lactatia Ngata, and all the members of the contact group. The Friends of the Chair group will meet this evening again at 7:30 p.m. I would now like to ask the co-chairs of the contact group on item 13A, capacity building and technical and scientific cooperation, Mr. Hayo Hanstra of the Netherlands and Ms. Laura Bermudez of Colombia, to report on their work. Hayo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Co-chair by Laura Bermudez, the contact group met from 1500 up to 1830 last night. The session began with Section B on technical and scientific cooperation, which included new texts that emerged from the intersessional work. It was decided to focus on paragraphs that needed to be resolved, starting with 28. That is related to Annex 3 that contain the terms of reference for the informal advisory group on TSC. The contact group managed to go through the entire Annex 3 and lifted most of the brackets, with only 2 sets of brackets remaining to be resolved. The contact group then moved on to paragraph 29 that deals with the options for institutional mechanisms for promoting and facilitating TSC. There were divergent views regarding the preferred option, with the majority leaning towards hybrid mechanisms. The options on the table include the following: regional centers, global and regional centers and the secretariat, and the last one, global center. In view of the divergences, a Friends of the Co-Chairs was established that was mandated to discuss and agree on one preferred option, and to review paragraph 32 to 37 and Annex 2, which include the following elements: functions of the selected mechanisms, criteria and modalities for the selection of entities to host the institutional mechanism, and lastly, the request to be the executive secretary. The Friends of the Chair will be facilitated by Simon Nibu, Patamakin Amek from Cameroon, and Ari-Pekka Auvin from Finland, and will meet on Friday from 1:15 to 2:45 in room 210E, and will report back to the contact group at its next session. The discussion then turned to Section A of the decision on capacity building and development, and managed to address paragraphs 1, 4, and 5, which was merged with 10. The contact group agreed to discuss paragraph 7 alongside paragraph 11 with a view to merge them. One party proposed an alternative paragraph, but due to a divergence of views, my co-chair and I requested the concerned parties to meet informally and propose a solution to the contact group in its next session. The contact group will meet again on Saturday, December 10th, from 10 a.m. to 1 hour. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much to Hayo and Laura and all the members of the contact group for your hard work. And as you have just mentioned, Hayo, the group will meet again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Turning now to the contact group on item 14, monitoring, reporting and review. I would now like to ask the co-chairs of this contact group, Ms. Gillian Guthrie of Jamaica and Mr. Andrew Stott of the UK, to report on their work. So Andy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The first session of the contact group on item 14 met on the 7th of December in the evening from 7:30 to 11:30. During the session, the work continued very efficiently and the parties were very engaged in the discussion. During the first session, we discussed the annexes to the decision on monitoring, review and reporting that had not been considered previously by the subsidiary body on implementation due to lack of time. The following conclusions were made. On Annex 1, parties broadly supported the Annex 1 on guidance on national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and stressed how important this annex was for the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework. Feedback was provided on this annex, and a revised version of the annex has now been released as a non-paper. On Annex 2, parties expressed general support for the structure of the annex, which covers the national reporting template for the 7th and 8th national reports. Parties would like to adopt this reporting template at COP15, but with an option to review the template after the 7th national report. Further feedback was provided on the annex, and a revised version of the annex has now been released as a non-paper. On Annex 3, parties preferred to continue to pilot the open-ended forum and of country-by-country reviews for further discussion at COP16, and would not consider the annex further at this meeting. On Annex 4, parties would like to include this annex on non-state actors in the COP15 decision on this item, if time permits. But the annex was not discussed in detail during the session. Then we moved on to look at the decision text itself. Good progress was made in cleaning up some of the brackets. However, we did not have time to complete the work through the decision text after the annex discussion, and therefore we will continue this work in the next session. We are looking forward to 2 further contact groups which are on the schedule. These are this afternoon at 3 p.m. and tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We feel we've made good progress with this item so far. Thank you, Chair, and we look forward to continuing the work.
Thank you very much, Gillian and Andy, and all the members of the contact group. And as you have noted, you will meet again this afternoon at 3 p.m. So let me reiterate my sincere thanks to all the co-chairs and the chair and all the members of the contact groups and friends of the chair for working so hard over these past few days. Please be sure to check the schedule to confirm the time and location of the next meetings. So, dear delegates, we'll now move to the consideration of the conference room papers that I have prepared with the help of the Secretariat, and we will review these paragraph by paragraph. Can I first say, before we start on that process, that I'm looking forward to our being able to show progress in this session, in our first adoption of conference room papers, particularly to be able to demonstrate progress on issues as important to our future work, as our work with Indigenous peoples and local communities, the importance of science, and the assessment of what has been done so far, what we've achieved so far, and on gender. 3 very important issues. So let's show some progress. So, dear colleagues, we will begin with the consideration of the CRPs under CBD COP item 10, enhancing integration with respect to provisions related to Article 8J and related provisions. And we will address each conference room paper separately. So let us start with CRP 3 on the development of a new program of work and institutional arrangements on Article 8J and other provisions of the Convention related to Indigenous peoples and local communities. The draft decision prepared by the ad hoc open-ended working group on Article 8J and related provisions had only a few square brackets. With regard to the ad hoc technical expert group to provide advice on the new program of work and institutional arrangements The text, we clarified in the text that this would be subject to the availability of financial resources. Since the working group on Article 8J will further consider institutional arrangements under Article 8J at its 12th meeting, we have adjusted the language in order not to prejudge the outcomes of these deliberations. With regard to the brackets in Annex 2, please note that we do not need to resolve these brackets at this meeting, as the elements of the new programme of work on Article 8J will be further considered by the Working Group on Article 8J and related provisions at its 12th meeting. Before I begin, I would like to ask the Secretariat whether there are any editorial comments or corrections to make to the CRP. Secretariat.
Thank you, Co-Chair. At the end of paragraph 7, there will be quote, for Article 8J, another provision of the Convention related to Indigenous people and local communities, end of quote, to be consistent with the title of this decision and paragraph 1 and 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. We will go through this document paragraph by paragraph in the draft decision and page by page in the annex. So let us start with the first preambular paragraph. Sorry, I have Guatemala asking for the floor. So, Guatemala, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Guatemala has a general comment on document CRP3 and in regard to the process for addressing this important issue. Chair, conservation and recognition and the adequate use of traditional knowledge of Indigenous people and local communities is a central theme in the implementation of the Convention as well as the post-2020 framework. In the recommendation adopted by the Working Group 5 for the post-2020 framework, the traditional knowledge appears 10 times in the document, and the reference for Indigenous peoples and local communities twice in the recommendation. So, Madam Chair, this delegation laments this situation and doesn't understand the understanding of the parties on future agreements and the options identified in the draft decision on the modus operandi for continuing the tasks and work related to Article 8J. This delegation was not consulted during the non-official consultations announced during the initial review of this theme, despite sending the Secretary our interest. This delegation considers that it is important that the decision we adopt on this matter at this conference of the parties gives a clear mandate on the formulation of the future institutional arrangements and the modus operandi for Article HJ, and that this be addressed in the meeting of the working group and come up with a clear decision in COP16 on Article 8J with a holistic approach, encouraging the participation of Indigenous communities and Indigenous peoples and local communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guatemala, and we will be able to address any concerns you have on particular paragraphs as we go through this, through the agenda, through the CRP. So you will be able to come back on this issue. So with that, can we revert to the first preambular paragraph recalling decision 516. Can we approve the first preambular paragraph? I see no requests for the floor. The first preambular paragraph is approved. Sorry, Costa Rica. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Only to state a comment in general, and this with regard to the translations in the different languages. With due respect, we appeal that there be careful attention paid to terms. Free, prior, and informed consent is translated into Spanish as the different term, and these concepts are extremely important, so we would ask that special attention be paid to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Costa Rica. And yes, that will be done. The Secretariat will look very carefully at the translations. So with that, I think we can move to preambular paragraph 2, recognising the need for. Can I take it that this preambular paragraph is acceptable? I see no comments. Thank you very much. Can I now move to preambular paragraph 3, building on the composite report, etc. I see no comments. This paragraph is approved. Finally, the fourth preambular paragraph, emphasising the need for the effective implementation, etc. I see no comments. This preambular paragraph is approved. So, before we proceed to operative paragraph 1, I would actually like us to consider Annex 1 and 2, which are referred to in paragraph 1. And can we approve can we approve Annex 1 as a whole? Sorry, I see Mexico. Mexico, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On Annex 1, on page 5, on the third section entitled Sharing of Benefits from Genetic Resources, specifically 3.3, when it says promote and support programs aimed at ensuring and so on, associated with traditional knowledge.
Sorry, Mexico, that's Annex 2.
Oh, is it Annex 2? Oh, sorry, my bad. Then no problem with Annex 1, sorry.
Colombia, do you have comments on Annex 1?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have comments on paragraph 7 before Annex 1. I'm sorry because I confuse. I don't know if you are going directly to the Annex 1.
Thank you. Mexico, you mean paragraph 7 of the actual decision? Sorry, Colombia. My apologies. If you're referring to paragraph 7 of the actual decision, we will come to that.
Okay.
I'm just skipping over to annexes 1 and 2 because they're referred to in operative paragraph 1. So we can come back to that.
Thank you.
So, Annex 1 as a whole then, if there are no more comments on Annex 1, Annex 1 is approved. Thank you very much. Now, Annex 2. What I would like to do with Annex 2, in fact, is to adopt it as a whole, noting that the text will remain in brackets for further consideration by the working group on Article 8J at its 12th meeting. So the headings were agreed, but the text, the substance underneath the headings will be further considered. Can I take it that this is acceptable? No, I've got Colombia. Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I'm really sorry, but I need to go back to the Annex 1 and paragraph 2. I would like to introduce in the second line after of women the words and girls, and go on, of indigenous people and local communities. So it's Annex 1, Section 2, Paragraph 2, Line 2, after women, the words and girls. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you very much, Colombia. Can I ask, well, I have the European Union and then Mexico, and you may want to address that issue as well when you speak, but European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the European Union and its 27 member states. We would like to see the brackets lifted because it's called draft possible element, so it's clear that it's only draft text, and we would like to see this, and it has been brought forward by the working group 8J, and we thought that it would be a very good way forward just to lift brackets. We would agree, however, not to add additional text at this stage, because we are very much aware that there is a peer review ongoing for all parties to also support or bring in additional elements or ideas to that program of work, so to Annex 2. And in our view, it would be also good to send this like this to the ARTEC, and we will then add additional elements later on. So I think this would be our approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, European Union. Let me just consult quickly with the Secretariat and come back to you on that. Sorry, European Union. Well, I understand the point that you are making. I think that it would be helpful to continue to keep the brackets there, and that's because, and I remember this very clearly from the Article 8 working group on Article 8J, the titles of the sections were actually agreed. So it would be good just to keep the brackets to make that distinction, that the titles were agreed, but the wording underneath was not, and is subject to further discussion. So if you are comfortable with us maintaining the brackets just for the sake of clarity and the distinction between those two, I think we can move on that basis. But I'll take European Union, are you coming back on that point? European Union, you have the floor, and then I'll go back to Mexico and Egypt.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So with this rationale and to support your overall idea to make progress, I think we can be flexible on this, and we could live with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, European Union, for your flexibility. And Colombia, I will come back to you as well. Mexico, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a bit confused now if also Annex 1, the text between will be then open up. I'm a bit confused now after the instructions. But regarding Colombia's mention, we would happily add girls, but we believe it is important to say indigenous women and girls rather than women of indigenous peoples. So given that it invisibilizes their presence, it's better to say indigenous girls, indigenous women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mexico. I will take Egypt, and then I'll come back to this question of that particular wording in Annex 1. Egypt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are also a little bit confused now based on what you have already said to EU. So we urge you to let it go for a little bit in a way that we can get more interventions on the issue. After all, the CRP is the reflection of what already have been done. Otherwise, it can be complicated. In the end, certainly, we agree with the EU in their position. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Egypt. So the EU has now agreed with my approach that we will maintain the brackets in Annex 2 where they are, simply to differentiate between the wording of the titles that was agreed in Annex 2 by the Working Group on Article 8J and the draft wording underneath them that wasn't able to be agreed and which is subject currently to a peer review process and will be taken up by the 12th meeting of Article 8J and related provisions. So with that, and this is Annex 2, so with that I very much hope that we can maintain the brackets just to make that distinction and on the understanding that this wording is all up for discussion. So you're asking for the floor again. Floor to Egypt, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not the issue. I mean, we understand this very well, and we agree in your proposal as well, which was accepted by EU. However, what we are asking now, give a little bit more reflection from the floor here in a way that to understand if there is some issues that need to be included in the existing CRB. Otherwise, it will not be L document. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I understand your point, Egypt. We are going to go back to the operative paragraphs. I just moved quickly to Annexes 1 and 2 because they're referred to in operative paragraph 1. So I think apologies for my confusion here and for my confusing you. I did not mean to do that. Now, so I think with that we can, and we're coming back to Annex 1, but I think that we can approve Annex 2. Can we approve Annex 2? Morocco, you're asking for the floor, and I see Mexico. So if this is not on Annex 2, could I ask you to push your button again? No, this is on Annex 2. All right. Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Now, we haven't completely understood what you meant when it came to the proposal made by the distinguished delegate of Egypt, which Morocco backs when it comes to the substance. Did you agree with what he said?
Pardon?
Well, I think the distinguished delegate from Egypt and myself are in agreement on the way forward, which is, so let me be very clear, that there is comfort with proceeding with Annex 2 on the basis that we will maintain the brackets where they are, because this will be subject to a peer review process, that I'm coming back shortly to Annex 1 because a text suggestion was made, and then we will be coming back to the operative paragraphs of the decision. And with my apologies for working backwards, it must be something to do with being in New Zealand and being at the bottom of the world. I hope that's clear, Morocco. Can I now give the floor to Mexico?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure that because the text will remain in brackets, we would be able to come back on the specific mentions that we have on Annex 2 at a later stage when it will be discussed, right? That's the understanding?
Thank you, Mexico. As you will all be aware, Annex 2, the text in brackets, is subject to a peer review process that is underway, I believe, until March next year. So there's been a Secretariat notification inviting comments on these. So the peer review process will take place, and then the results of that will be discussed by Working Group 8J at its 12th meeting. So that will be the opportunity to provide substantive comments on those sections. And I see you nodding, so I hope that's correct. All right. Thank you very much. Now I see Costa Rica. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and sorry because we have a request regarding Annex 1, if it's possible, regarding the paragraph 7, the inclusion after the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, the Food and Agriculture Organization and other relevant bodies. So the inclusion of the FAO, this because of the link and the related work that they have in biological and cultural diversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Costa Rica. So let me now, Annex 2 is approved. Let me move now to Annex 1. And let me take first the proposed wording from, we had a proposal from Colombia, followed up by Mexico, and then I will move to paragraph 7 and the proposal from Costa Rica. So firstly, taking up the proposal from Colombia and then amended by Mexico. So my understanding is that the proposal would be that in paragraph 2 of Annex 1, the second sentence would read, full and effective participation of Indigenous women and girls in all activities of the program of work. Is that acceptable? Mexico, you have the floor.
Yes, I mean, we're working with Colombia in case we can give us a few seconds just to make sure that the translation also works. It's just that given that in Spanish it's different than in English, the conception on how we write this down, we would like to ask the Secretariat to just give us a second and go with you to text in Spanish and in English to make sure that our concerns are reflected.
Yes, that would be fine. And then I wonder if I might beg Iran's indulgence, and because you've asked for the floor, perhaps we wait until we've heard the text solution and you can hear the full text solution before making a comment. I hope that's acceptable. So Mexico, I think you may be ready.
Yes, so the English part would be okay. It's just that under translation, we would need to repeat sort of mujeres indígenas, mujeres y niñas indígenas y mujeres de.
So we would repeat indigenous women and girls, and then repeat in Spanish in indigenous women and girls and local communities.
From local communities.
Thank you, Mexico. Sorry, I'm going to ask the Secretariat to read out what that would be in English, just so everybody understands, because what we're trying to do is ensure that we don't lose the reference to local communities as well. So if we read that out in English, obviously we will ensure that the Spanish translation is correct before we produce the L document. So Secretariat, could you please read out in English what that would be?
Thank you, Chair. The sentence will read, full and effective participation of women and girls from indigenous people and local communities in all activities of the program of work. Thank you.
All right. I hope that is, thank you, thumbs up is what we want to see. Now, Iran, you have the floor. And apologies for the delay.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Iran, I just wanted to revise it as women and girls from indigenous people and local communities. Thank you so much.
Excellent, thank you very much. And I think we've taken taken that into account, so thank you very much for your intervention. Now I have Colombia. Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Yes, we agree with the formulation that the Secretary has read, so it will be full and effective participation of women and girls of indigenous peoples and local communities in all activities of the program of work. We can accept that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move then to the proposal for paragraph 7, which was to the addition of the Food and Agriculture Organization following the reference to UNESCO. Sorry, I see Mexico is asking for the floor again. Is this on this particular proposal, Mexico? I hope so.
Yes, so before on paragraph 6, if you see there are 3 concepts.
Sorry, Mexico, can we please deal with we're dealing with paragraph 7 now.
On Annex 1.
And
it's
Annex
in Annex 1. There are 3 concepts.
Yes, but I would like to deal with
Okay.
with the Food and Agriculture Organization one
Okay, then
first,
we
if you don't
support
mind.
Costa Rica on that mention.
Yeah. Morocco, is this on paragraph 7 of Annex 1? You have the floor.
Exactement, Madame la...
Exactly, yes. Madam Chair, we support the proposal to add FAO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Morocco. I think on that basis we will include the reference to the FAO, and I will invite Mexico. Sorry, Mexico, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for coming back. It's just that as you see in paragraph 6, there's 3 options on prior informed consent, free, prior, and informed consent, or approval and involvement. And the agreed language is free, prior, and informed consent. So throughout all the text, not only in this Annex 1, but pretty much in the whole document, you repeat those 3 options. So given agreed language is free, prior, and informed consent, we would ask the Secretariat to keep that option across the text and make sure that the translation is correct as libre, previo, e informado. Thank you very much.
Is there any objection to the proposal from Mexico for that simplification? Sorry, I have Costa Rica. Were you objecting? Could I ask you to clear your microphones unless you are objecting to that formulation? No objections? In that case, we'll proceed on that basis. Thank you very much. All right, so going back to the speaking list, thank you very much. That was very efficient. Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have no objection to what has just been proposed. However, we would like it to be repeated so that we can understand exactly what the delegate from Mexico would like included in this paragraph.
Thank you, Morocco. The proposal was to, instead of having the full prior and conformed consent, free prior and informed consent, or approval and involvement, we will have just free, prior, and informed consent. So free, prior, and informed consent. Thank you. European Union, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. We had the impression that it was put here on purpose by this, so to have prior and informed consent free, prior and informed consent and approval and involvement to be very inclusive also for agreed terms, for example, in the Nagoya Protocol, etc. So this was our understanding, and I would need to maybe clarify this a bit. Thank you.
Sorry, we're just consulting up here on another issue as well. All right, I'll now move to Guatemala, followed by the European Union. Guatemala, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora. Thank you very much, Chair. This will be brief. This delegation supports the suggestion made by Mexico, and we would only like to highlight and insist on what the Costa Rican delegation and the Mexican delegation have said. It is very important that the Spanish version have the proper translation of free, prior, and informed consent, and this throughout the document, not only in this specific paragraph, but throughout the entire document. Thank you.
Absolutely, Guatemala, and we will make sure that that is correct. Thank you so much. Now, can I ask the European Union to take the floor, and then we might be able to move on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I also thanks to the Secretariat for the informal information. So that would work for us to just have FPIC, but as a matter of consistency also for the BBIS and T20, in there we have at the moment, we use FPIC in the text and then a short footnote to the tripartite formulation. And I think that would be a very clever solution here to be also in line and consistent with the other documents that are under negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, there's no, we're not required to be entirely consistent with the Global Biodiversity Framework text, but I'm sure we can put a footnote in, and I'm sure that would be acceptable to others. But let me hear from others. So, Dominican Republic, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
We just wanted to support completely the positions made by Guatemala and Mexico. We will prefer the free, prior, and informed consent, and we want this to be reflected in Spanish as well. And we were going to make the same suggestion as the EU said, to put a footnote, as we have been doing in other documents, to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominican Republic. If the proposal by the European Union to have the words, well, if the proposal to have free, prior and informed consent in the text with the additional footnote is acceptable to everybody, could I ask those who have asked the floor to refrain from speaking so that we can move on? Is that, or Mexico, do you have another point to make? Right, Mexico, so.
Thank you. If consistency is what is worrying other delegations, we will be raising this on every single front. Mexico will be asking on the Global Biodiversity Framework and on every single document that the correct term is free, prior, and informed consent, and that's a specific rights that pertains to indigenous people and is recognized in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So we will make that specific point on every single document. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mexico. I'm sure we've all taken due note of that. With that, then, Annex 1. I see IPLC's 154. You have the floor.
Apologies, Madam Chair, because I wanted to say something on number 7. Presently, it reads that the further operation in line 3, further operationalization will also be continued under the renewed joint program of work on the links between biological and cultural diversity. In fact, most of the operationalization will be taking place under Working Group 8J. Therefore, I would like to add including in partnership, because there will be also other organizations involved, but primarily this will be under the Working Group 8J itself. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I understand that you would like to include the word including before the words in partnership. Could I ask if that is supported by a party? I see no. So, EU, you're supporting? All right, thank you very much. So the proposal, therefore, is that we include the word including in paragraph 7 in line 4 before in partnership. Are there any objections to this? I see none. With that, Annex 1 is approved. Thank you very much. Now let's go back to the operative paragraphs. And let's hope that we can move a little faster through these, because we've still got a lot to do. Now, can we approve the first paragraph? I see no objections. Paragraph 1 is approved. Can we approve paragraph 2? I see no objections. Paragraph 2 is approved. Can we approve paragraph 3, encourages parties, etc.? Mexico, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. According to national legislation to increase efforts, Mexico asked to include and international obligations as it is relevant that parties uphold the UN that I've already mentioned, Rights of Indigenous People Act and different conventions. So it would read, encourages parties according to national legislation and international obligations to increase efforts to facilitate and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mexico. I'm sure there cannot be any objections to that wording. Bolivia, I take it you are not objecting to that wording, but please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Just we want to address an important issue in the line 4th. After collective action, we think that it is also relevant to include cosmocentric world views and diverse values, comma. Thank you.
Thank you, Bolivia. So I understand your proposal is to add the words, in the 4th line after collective actions, to add the words cosmocentric world views and diverse values. Can I ask if there are any objections to the addition of the wording and international obligations? I see no objections. Thank you. Can I turn to the wording just proposed by the distinguished delegate from Bolivia, the addition of the words cosmocentric worldviews and diverse values? Are there any objections to this wording? I see no objections. With that, paragraph 3 is approved. Thank you. Can we move now to paragraph 4? Are we able to approve paragraph 4? United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding this paragraph, we were just a little bit confused about asking parties to report on the implementation of the new program of work if we haven't adopted it yet. So we wondered if we should be saying that we report once it's adopted, but we are open to further explanation on this point.
Yes, you're right. Yes, sorry.
After local. Yeah.
And then replace including by as well as.
So. Thank you very much, United Kingdom. What we propose, your point is a good one. And what we propose from the podium is to, in the 3rd line, after the words local communities, to add the words once adopted, comma, as well as the application of various voluntary guidelines and standards, etc. So to replace including with as well as, and make the point that parties, of course, will not be able to report on the implementation of the new program of work until it is adopted. So just to be really clear, the paragraph would read, or the first part of the paragraph would read, requests parties and other governments to report on the implementation of the new program of work on Article 8J and other provisions of the Convention related to Indigenous peoples and local communities once adopted, as well as on the application of the various voluntary guidelines, etc., etc. I trust that is acceptable to everybody. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. We thought that it might be useful to add, after the implementation of the current as well as, and then continuing the new program, etc. The rationale behind is that parties and other governments might be also willing, or we would like to wish them to report on the progress they made also in the ongoing program of work. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. So I understand your proposal would be to say requests parties and other governments to report on the implementation of the current as well as the new program of work, etc., etc. Thank you very much. I assume that will be acceptable to others. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think we are seeking guidance because when we do the insertion of once adopted, there are quite a number of elements, and most of the issues here are expected to be implemented once the document is adopted. So I don't know how then going forward we align that kind of insertion with other aspects that obviously will be expected to be implemented after the adoption. We need your guidance, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. So my understanding is that what we're talking about being adopted is the new program of work on Article 8J, and that is the new program of work which is included in Annex 2, but subject, of course, to the review process, and that it will be adopted, we hope, at the 12th, will be further discussed at the 12th meeting of Article 8J and then adopted at COP16. So I hope that has clarified the issue for you. Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Well, as much as I agree with the proposal to add the term actual, when it comes to the addition, once it's been adopted, I don't see, and I'm speaking about the French version here, Madam Chair, what is it linked to? Is it the report that is referred to in the first line of this paragraph? We need to know what it is linked to directly, because otherwise the paragraph is simply unclear. I don't know, Madam Chair. Are you able to follow what I'm trying to tell you here? Can you follow what I'm saying, Madam? Regarding the drafting of this paragraph, because I don't understand it. Who is this going to go back to when it's been adopted, and what is it? What has been adopted? The report? The report, we see this in the first line in the French version. So you see that there is an editorial drafting problem here, and it precludes us from being able to fully understand what both the content and the spirit of this sentence actually are in paragraph 4. So I'll just repeat again that I fully agree and support the addition of actual and new program, or current and new program.
Thank you, Morocco. And yes, I understand that there's probably a translation issue happening here. So the idea is that we're requesting parties and other governments to report, and what they will be reporting on is both the current program of work and as well as the new program of work once that is adopted. So I hope that is clear, and we can we'll do our best to make sure that the translation in French is absolutely clear on this point as well. So if you'll bear with us on that, thank you very much. Thank you, Morocco. Now I have Egypt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Egypt also a little bit confused here, because on one hand, the whole text, the whole new program is still under peer review, and it will be presented at COP15. Why we are in a hurry at this meeting, for example? If it is old or the current program, that is understood easily. But when it comes to something new, we still have more brackets in it. There is a confusion here at this paragraph as well. We feel still there is something not very clearly understood, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Egypt. Parties will not be expected to report on the implementation of the new program of work until it has been adopted. So I hope that is very clear. Thank you very much, Egypt. With those changes then, I think we can approve paragraph 4. Thank you very much for your cooperation on that. Paragraph 5. Can we approve paragraph 5? I see no speakers. Paragraph 5 is approved. Paragraph 6. Sorry, Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Only to be consistent with the Annex 1, the situation regarding with free, prior, and informed consent. So we would prefer to delete the other additions to this concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica, and I propose that we follow the same formulation that we used in Annex 1, and hope that is acceptable to all of you. United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully this is also another small editorial point. We were not aware of national focal points being designated for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, so maybe this needs to be changed to national focal points on the Convention on Biological Diversity, or just bracketed until the decision on the framework is agreed, in case that is something we're going to establish. But to our understanding, this hasn't been a concept that was discussed yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, United Kingdom. That's a very good point. Our suggestion is to refer to the Convention national focal points, if that's acceptable to others. And if that is acceptable, and with that proposed change to free, prior and informed consent, then we will approve. Sorry, before that we will go to the European Union. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. And just very small addition in D, 6D, promoting capacity building and development, and continue with for indigenous peoples and local communities. That would be our suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, European Union. I think that would be consistent with what we have done throughout this convention. So I see no further comments. So with those changes in paragraph 6, then paragraph 6 is approved. Thank you very much. So moving to section B, paragraph 7. Can we approve paragraph 7? I see Mexico. Mexico, you have the floor.
Thank you. Very small suggestion. After the second line in convene and adopt technical expert group on indigenous people and local communities, we would like to add comma respectively. We are concerned that when we're talking about technical groups, the needs of indigenous peoples are not necessarily the same as local communities. So we just want to make sure that the expert groups has individuals from indigenous peoples and then from local communities. So just add respectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mexico. Guatemala, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much, Chair. Madam Chair, in keeping with the explanations given us earlier, our understanding is the idea is to leave the paragraph open enough. We are not taking into account previous discussions and negotiations that have been unfolded at previous meetings on Article 8J. And it's important to understand that B in Annex 3 mandates the expert group to work on legal, organizational, and financial issues for every possible option and different apparatus. So Guatemala would like to suggest that at the end of this text, we replace the final point with a comma and add the following in English.
Future modus operandi for the implementation on Article 8G, considering the possible establishment of a subsidiary body, working group, or other. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much.
Apologies, Guatemala. Could you repeat your proposal? Thank you.
Claro que sí, señora presidenta.
Most certainly, Madam Chair. At the end of the text, we suggest adding the following wording. So this is taken from a previous decision taken.
The future modus operandi for the implementation of Article 8G, considering the possible establishment of a subsidiary body, comma, working group, or other. Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Guatemala. Can I South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. South Africa supports the text proposal from Guatemala, but we just want to add one more text on the same lines next to the institutional arrangements, just to add the word and the possible institutional arrangement and their modus operandi as suggested by Guatemala. So our proposal is just to add the word possible before institutional arrangement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, South Africa. United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ours is a small comment on the text in the third line of this paragraph, which says, which shall meet prior to the 12th meeting. We believe that shall is treaty language, so we would like this to be changed to should, so which should meet prior to the 12th meeting. And then we could support the proposal made by our colleague from South Africa on the addition of the word possible. Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just want to be sure that this paragraph includes the addition to other provisions of the CBD related to IPLCs in the last lines. Thank you very much.
Delegates, while we're talking about paragraph 7, we think it would be helpful if we in fact move if we park the discussion on paragraph 7 and move to annex 3, which covers the elements, many of the elements in paragraph 7. So my apologies, I should have done this before we moved to paragraph 7. But if we could perhaps move to annex 3, then that will cover off many of the issues that we're talking about in paragraph 7, we hope. So apologies for this confusion. We will come back to paragraph 3 and we'll move to annex 3 now. So Annex 3 is the terms of reference for the ad hoc technical expert group. So can I invite comments on Annex 3 as a... Well, we might go through this para by para. Can I invite comments on the... or ask if we can approve the chapeau in paragraph 1? Just the 2 lines. Then no problem with those. Any comments on, or can we agree on subparagraph A? I see no comments. Are there any comments on paragraph B, which talks about elaborating the options and talks about the modus operandi? South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. South Africa would like to add the following text under subpara B. On the second sentence after convention, we put comma, and then we add the following text, such as, comma, but not limited to those options contained in paragraph 9 of decision 14/17, comma, and the views submitted by parties, comma, governments and indigenous peoples and local communities in response to the same paragraph, comma, and then we keep the remaining text. Thank you.
Thank you very much, South Africa. Got it. So, Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Could I ask my colleague from South Africa to just repeat the proposed additional language, but perhaps she could do it at dictation speed, because I personally was not able to follow everything.
Thank you, Morocco. Could I give the floor to the delegate from South Africa to repeat the proposal? South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I repeat, the text starts after the word convention in the second sentence of paragraph 1B, and it reads as follows: such as, but not limited to those options contained in paragraph 9 of decision 14/17, comma, and the views submitted by parties, governments, and indigenous peoples and local communities in response to the same paragraph, comma, and then we keep the original text in the same para until the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, South Africa. I hope, Morocco, that is now understood. Thank you. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comment is more of a question, and it's in response to the new text proposed by the delegate from South Africa. If my understanding is that her proposal is to not limit the options considered for the future institutional arrangement to those that are presented in paragraph 14, in decision 14/17. But my question, I guess, pertains more to the sentence that follows. If we're not limiting options to the views submitted by parties, governments, and IPLCs. I guess my question is, what mechanism and how are those views submitted by parties in response to Decision 1417? What process is that referring to? And presumably, we would be supportive of kind of, in particular, considering the views of parties, governments, and IPLCs. I'm just wondering what elements in particular, or what reference to the views submitted in response to Decision 1417, and what mechanism they're referring to, what views they're trying to refer to specifically, and what process they were submitted in response to Decision 1417.
Thank you. Thank you, Canada. Can I invite South Africa to respond to clarify the question raised by Canada? South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and apologies for the delays. I think my mic just turned off. So South Africa would like to request time to consult amongst our delegation on this matter. Thank you.
Sorry, bear with us. We're just going to have some quick consultations on this proposal. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. South Africa, you're asking for the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving us the opportunity to consult amongst our delegation. So we have now come back with a more refined proposed text that is trying to eliminate some of the confusion that was created with the original text proposal. So what we'd like to now put on the table, and we hope that it will now sound clear to the Canadian delegation. So our revised text proposal will now read as follows. Still starting at the same point after convention, we then say including but not limited to those options contained in paragraph 9 of decision 14/17, and then we keep the remaining original text. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, South Africa. So with that, I think we can approve paragraph B. Paragraph B is approved. Moving to paragraph C, prepare a report. Sorry, subparagraph C. Can we approve subparagraph C? Columbia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In order to have consistency with the title of this annex, we need to include in this C the words in the second line after Article AJ and the words other provisions of the Convention related to indigenous peoples and local communities and its 12th meeting. Full stop.
Thank you very much, Columbia.
Thank you.
That will be included. Can we move now to paragraph 2 of Annex 3? And I see the European Union. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a suggestion, and because we were wondering the term geocultural regions, if this is here appropriate, or whether we should not talk about socio-cultural reasons, as also the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues is suggesting. Maybe you can clarify on this. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union, for pointing that out. I think you are quite right. Sorry. Sorry. With that change proposed by the European Union, then we will approve paragraph 2. So paragraph 2 is approved. And with that, we have approved Annex 3. Thank you very much. Let us return to paragraph 7 then. We're nearly through this conference room paper. So, Can I ask the Secretariat to now read paragraph 7 to refresh our memories on what wording was proposed, how we're proposing this paragraph be worded. One moment.
Just one second.
Secretariat, could you read the paragraph, please?
Thank you, Chair. The paragraph 7 will read, recalling decision 7/17, request the Executive Secretary to convene an ad hoc technical expert group on indigenous people and local communities and the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, subject to ability of financial resources, which should meet prior to the 12th meeting of the ad hoc open-ended intersessional working group on Article 8J and other provisions, with the terms of reference as contained in Annex 3 to the present decision, to provide advice on further elaboration of the new program of work and possible institution arrangement for Article 8J and other provisions, including the further modus operandi for the implementation of Article 8J, considering the possibility to establish a subsidiary body, continuing the working group, or other arrangement. Full stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the Secretariat to read the paragraph 7, but I guess it's missing two sections that the other parties has been raised. So the first inclusion, and we want to support Mexico on that, is in the second line of the paragraph 7, after local communities, include comma, respectively, comma. And the second inclusion or suggestion made by Costa Rica that Colombia support is in the last line of the paragraph, after AJ, and include the word other, then go with provisions, and after provisions, include the words related to indigenous peoples and local communities of the convention. And I understand that after this goes the text proposed by other parties. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Colombia. We will make sure that is done consistently throughout this text. So, Colombia, sorry, we've just been having a discussion here about the proposal to insert the word respectively in that second line, and the difficulty is that this is going with a talking about convening an ad hoc technical expert group on Indigenous peoples and local communities, and the annex itself goes into detail on the composition of the RTEG. So we're just a bit concerned that if you add the word respectively, then it will be confusing here in paragraph 7. And we wonder if it would be acceptable not to include respectively here, but to leave it to the annex to cover the composition. Would that be acceptable, Colombia? You have the floor. Colombia.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand that this respectively means that we need different kind of expertise for Indigenous people and local communities. So in that case, about your proposal, we need to go then again to the Annex 3 to see if this is clear in the Annex 3. So maybe I need to have some minutes to review that. Thank you.
I'm quite keen to move on. Could I ask Mexico, who made the original proposal, whether they would be comfortable with deleting it from this section? Mexico, you have the floor.
Thank you. For the sake of compromise and moving on, we can let it go. But when we are discussing the ad hoc group, we will make sure that in the selection criteria, it needs to be very well represented. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mexico and Colombia. I hope that is acceptable. So with that then, sorry, Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you, and apologies to get the floor again. But in that case, we are very agree with Mexico, and maybe we can include the word respectively in the Annex 3, paragraph 2, after Indigenous peoples and local communities, comma, respectively, including 3 experts per region, and go on. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Colombia. So the word respectively will be added into Annex 3, paragraph 2, after local communities. I trust that's acceptable. And we can now move to approve paragraph 7. Sorry, European Union.
Thank you. We were seeking would like to get some clarification what the rationale or idea behind this. Would it mean that there should be 7 representatives of local communities and 7 representatives of indigenous peoples part of the ACTEC? Is that right?
Sorry, the European Union, our understanding of the is that this would result in it wouldn't necessarily result in seven of each. It would result in a mix of representatives.
It already says 2.
So 2 representatives of Indigenous peoples and local communities, and that we would ensure that there were also representatives from local communities. Sorry. Does that make sense? European Union, you have the floor.
Yeah. In this case, I don't see the need for having in respectively in here. So, because then I think there will be a selection process and a good consultation. Am I right, or?
European Union, yes, you're right. There will be a good consultation selection process, but I think in order to give comfort to those parties for whom this is important, it would be helpful if we could accept this wording. Thank you very much. So paragraph 7 is approved. Paragraph 8 of the decision. I see no requests. Paragraph 8 is approved. Paragraph 9. European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for taking the floor again. We would like to suggest to add before institutional arrangements in the 3rd line, decide on continuous, long-term, and inclusive, and then continue with institutional arrangements. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, European Union. Guatemala, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We can accept the suggestion made by the European Union, and we consider that in the 3rd line, after decide on institutional arrangements, we would like to suggest adding and a future modus operandi. In English?
And future modus operandi for Article 8G. Thank you.
Thank you, Guatemala. Argentina, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And though we understand the suggestion of including a qualifier to the institutional arrangements, we think that we should not preclude the result of the consideration that we are deciding to do in the future. So at least at this stage, we would not support the inclusion of the qualifiers. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. European Union then and Guatemala, given that there's objection to that wording and that the 3 options are actually, there are 3 options included already in the paragraph, could we agree to not include that wording? Thank you very much, European Union. Guatemala, is that also all right with you? Thank you very much. So we will not include the qualifying language, and with that, paragraph 9 is approved. Could we move to paragraph 10? European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're almost done, but so I would like to add at the very end, after ad hoc technical expert group, comma, for consideration at the subsidiary body for implementation at its 4th meeting, comma, to be adopted at COP16. So that would just give a very clear indication on the way to go. And we trust that this is the way to go, isn't it? Thank you very much.
European Union, the normal practice is that the recommendations from Article 8J go straight to the COP. So we're wondering why you would want to put it through the subsidiary body for implementation. You have the floor.
To COP. Yeah, absolutely right. Sorry for this mistake on our side. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We could retain the reference to COP16.
For consideration.
Yeah, for consideration at COP16. Yeah, thank you very much. With that, paragraph 10 is adopted. And that brings us to the end of the CRP. And have we left anything out? Can we approve? Sorry, Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Japan understands the importance of this topic, and at the same time, we like to emphasize that any programs and projects should be planned and implemented in cost-efficient way. And they will not overlap with the work in the MOP and other international organizations such as WIPO, and proceed harmoniously with those works, in order that the core budget will not increase for this purpose. We like Secretariat to record our comment for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Your comments will be noted and recorded. Thank you very much. With those comments then, can we approve CRP 3? I see no objections. CRP 3 is approved. Thank you very much. Right, our first CRP, and it was very fitting that it be this CRP, and it was a very important one, so thank you very much for your collaboration. I would like to move faster, if we can, through the other CRPs. So I would now like to submit CRP 4 on item 10B, on an in-depth dialogue on thematic areas and cross-cutting issues for your review and approval. This CRP reproduces the clean text prepared by the working group on Article 8J, and I hope that we can approve the text, the conference room paper as it is. We will go through this document paragraph by paragraph. Can we approve the first preambular paragraph welcoming the in-depth dialogue? I see no requests. The first preambular paragraph is approved. Can we approve the second preambular paragraph, recognizing that the contribution, etc. The second preambular paragraph is approved. Can we approve the third preambular paragraph, also recognising this paragraph is approved? Can we move to the fourth preambular paragraph? This paragraph is approved. And the fifth preambular paragraph, recognising the importance in the European Union.
Thank you very much. I hope it's just a minor thing, and I do think so. I read our proposal first and then add the rationale. So it should read, in our view, of the three objectives of the Convention on Biological Diversity for biocultural diversity. The idea behind is that we had some question marks whether it relates to a convention for biocultural diversity, because there is one in place, a living convention on biocultural diversity, and that would make it very clear. Thanks.
Thank you, European Union. That's a very sensible suggestion for clarity. With that, can we approve, therefore, the fifth preambular paragraph? Thank you. That is approved. And can we move to paragraph 1? Can we approve paragraph 1? Thank you. Paragraph 1 is approved. Paragraph 2. Can we approve paragraph... Mexico, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Here, as mentioned in the CRP3, according to national legislation and international obligations. Same rationale as before.
Thank you very much. Mexico. So we'd be adding and international obligations to the end of paragraph 2. With that, is paragraph 2 approved? Thank you very much. Moving to the final paragraph, paragraph 3 decides that. Is this paragraph approved? Paragraph 3 is approved. So with that, can we approve CRP 4? CRP 4 is approved. Thank you very much. Record time. Well done. I would now like to submit CRP 5 on item 10C, recommendations from the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues to the CBD for your review and approval. This CRP reproduces the clean text prepared by the Working Group on Article 8J, and I hope that we can approve the CRP as is, and we'll go through this paragraph by paragraph as well, starting with the first preambular paragraph, having considered the note. Is this approved? Thank you. This is approved. Paragraph 1 takes note of the recommendations, etc. This paragraph is approved. Paragraph 2, the chapeau. Well, in fact, let's take paragraph 2 as a whole. Paragraph 2 as a whole. This paragraph is approved. Paragraph 3. Paragraph 3 is approved. No, I have Costa Rica. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just to be consistent with the previous document, I think in paragraph number 3, we can include also related provisions of the Convention on Biological Diversity from the perspective of the relevance of the knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Yes, we will be consistent. Thank you very much. With that, paragraph 3 is approved. And paragraph 4. Paragraph 4 is approved. So with that, can we approve CRP 5, CRP5 is approved. Thank you very much, everybody. So I look forward to moving us quickly through sub-items 8A and 8B and 9D. Have you got an 8A there? Sorry, bear with me, I'm just sorting my paperwork. You've got it now. It wasn't there this morning. All right, dear delegates, we will now move to the CRPs on sub-items 8A and 8B. On these sub-items, some redundancy in language has been removed, and I've tried to achieve a better balance between ambition and means of implementation. With regards to the lessons learned from the implementation of the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2011 to 2020, I've maintained a commitment to consider the lessons learned from the review of implementation of the Convention and Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2011 to 2020, and kept only the reference to these lessons rather than the full text in the annex. We'll begin with CRP1. So let us start with paragraph 1. Can we approve paragraph 1 of CRP 1? I see no requests for the floor. Paragraph 1 is approved. Paragraph 2. Can we approve paragraph 2? Paragraph 2 is approved. Paragraph 3. Can we approve paragraph 3? I see the European Union. You have the floor.
Can you hear me? Yeah, now. I'm speaking on behalf of the European Union and its 27 member states. We welcome the continuing efforts in establishing a strong evidence base for the GBF, although there is a need to also couple this with an adequate monitoring system in order to give the CBD parties sufficient feedback about their progress via GBF indicators. This includes specifically the GBO-5, which the EU and its member states wish to welcome instead of taking note only in the paragraph 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, European Union. I understand you want to, in paragraph 3, replace takes note with welcome. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to echo the comment by the EU, we think in this context it would be very unfortunate to not welcome the 5th edition of the Global Biodiversity Outlook, as well as the 2nd edition of the Local Biodiversity Outlook. They're fundamental pieces in informing the discussions that we're having today and on ongoing discussions on the Global Biodiversity Framework. And we think it's an important element, an important signal to send that we welcome these important documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. Brazil, you have the floor.
We're in the middle of the panel shootout here, Madam Chair, but I'll intervene. I want to recall our intervention during the virtual session of Substa because I I think we made clear that no one is most frustrated, concerned. One even could use the word angered about the result of GBO5. And I want to take the wording of my colleague from the European Union when he said the best science evidence-based possible. And regretfully, that was not contained in GBO5. I had several opportunities to state that the information in those in GBO5 is not factual. It was not based on peer-reviewed academic scientific published papers. And anyone that has minimal understanding of the issue of agricultural subsidies would already are being very cautious about talking about Brazilian agricultural subsidies. I want to recall everybody here the OECD, and then I think that would be a reliable source lost. A reliable just source. Brazil just was knocked out from the World Cup by Croatia. Congratulations, my colleagues from Croatia. But I want to recall OECD report on agriculture subsidies that recalls that during the period that the GBO5 reports, Brazil reduced those that can be considered subsidies by a fifth in the same period. So there is a huge reduction of subsidies in Brazil. And the OECD makes it very clear what are the subsidies that would, it did not mention soybeans, it did not mention beefs as the paper that Secretariat rely on. And so I could continue here explaining regretfully again, I say, as everybody in this room, Brazil really wish to welcome the document. We really want GBF to be science-based and best evidence available. But regretfully, that was not the case. And I think we should encourage the Secretariat for in the future, and since we have EPBs, I even fail to understand why we would have something written by the Secretary and not rely on EPBs. But if there would be a GBO6, I think we should all make a clear mandate to the Secretary to rely only on scientific peer-reviewed documents. So I hope I can understand, get the understanding from the rest of the floor here. And I'm concerned, I'm deeply frustrated, as all we are here, but takes note, it's already a huge compromise from our side, because actually what was delivered from GBO5 was not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brazil. First of all, I'm very much relieved to see that to hear that your reactions on the floor were not reactions to my comments that I was making, but reactions to what was happening in the game. And my commiserations to Brazil and congratulations to Croatia. Getting back to the point. Thank you for your explanation. With that, I would ask if the EU and Canada have flexibility in the interests of moving on to agree to takes note. European Union. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a flexibility in this. I understand Brazil for their position, although we still believe that the GBO5 is quite strong technical background for our work and implementation of the CBD. So the flexibility is that we can propose a take a note with appreciation.
Well, I'm not sure that that is going to be acceptable to Brazil, but it may be. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to propose something along the lines of what EU just proposed, and so we would support EU's intervention. We recognize the importance of the work of the GBO and would like to acknowledge this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, could I ask that people make their point very quickly on this? Brazil.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I really fail to understand the rationale because I think we should be requesting the Secretariat to be more cautious when they prepare their documents. And so taking note is the far I can go. And I don't think that we need to continue these discussions, Madam Co-Chair. I think as I said, anyone that is minimally related to agriculture subsidies knows that there is no sense what's written in GBO-5 in that part. So takes note is the far I can go, and I hope I can count on an understanding on that. Otherwise, I would simply request deleting the paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Indonesia also prefer to use welcome in this paragraph as we have concern on the LBO report. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia, but I think the wording on the table now takes note with appreciation. So we have takes note with appreciation on the floor. We have a party that will not accept that. Can I ask if parties are prepared to move on the basis of simply taking note? Canada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In interest of compromise, we will accept take note. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We seem to hear only one party going against this, so we would like to support taking note with appreciation. Thank you.
Brazil.
Madam Co-Chair, I'll be very straightforward. Again, there are very strong case for criticizing the Secretariat for the work they've done. What I've been asked here, I completely fail to understand why we would welcome something or take note of something of appreciation, something that was not prepared. The document does not rely on scientific-based evidence. We should be dealing, if you want to deal with that, we should be wording that would criticize that in some case. I'm not asking for that. I'm not asking for that. I'm not going there. So I hope you have the understanding from everybody and you can stick to takes note. Thank you.
Kenya, please.
Thank you, Chair. I propose for purposes of making progress, really, we can take note and we agree all of us to take note and we move on. Thank you, Chair.
Egypt, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We always also suggest to take note as well as in Kenya now. Thank you.
Delegates, I'm in your hands. I know that there is a large number of you who would like to have had welcomed or takes note with appreciation. And I think we all recognise that point. But I guess the question is which issues should we spend time on? So Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Now, it seems to me that this was a compromise. And even though we would prefer the wording takes note, I would suggest that we add takes good note. Is this a compromise that could perhaps be acceptable to both sides? Thank you.
Thank you, Morocco, for your innovative suggestion. I don't believe we've used that wording previously in our documents, and I would be very reluctant to go in that direction now. But as always, appreciate the input. Can we move on the basis of takes note? Egypt, you asking the floor again?
Yes, Madam Chair. Let us go. After all, the document itself, when it was prepared, it was sent to all of the national focal points for review, and and we agreed on previous meetings on it. So why, we don't have the time to go on all of this. Take notes, and we agree. Most of the participants agree on take notes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I think we will approve paragraph 3 on the basis of takes note. And thank you for your understanding and for the concessions that have been made on this point, which are acknowledged. Paragraph 4. Can we approve paragraph 4? Paragraph 4 is approved. Paragraph 5, which also uses the same term, takes note. Paragraph 5 is approved. Paragraph 6. Paragraph 6 is approved. Paragraph 7 encourages parties. Paragraph 7 is approved. Paragraph 8 urges parties. Paragraph 8 is approved. With that, can we approve CRP 1? CRP 1 is approved. Thank you so much. Dear delegates, we do have some time to continue our work, but we don't have a lot of time. So I very much hope that we can move through this CRP 6 efficiently. So CRP 6 is on the review of progress in the implementation of the Convention and the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2011-2020. What I've done in this CRP is that I have removed reference to subparagraphs of Decision 10.2 in the preamble and retained the reference to the whole decision. And as I explained earlier, retain reference to lessons learned rather than the annex containing those lessons in the interests of moving quickly through this CRP. We will go through paragraph by paragraph, starting with the first preambular paragraph, recalling Decision 10.2. This paragraph is approved. Recalling also the conclusions of the 5th edition. This paragraph is approved. Paragraph 1 welcomes the updated analysis. This paragraph is approved. Paragraph 2 welcomes also the efforts. This paragraph is approved. Paragraph 3 welcomes further the efforts made by parties. This paragraph is approved. Paragraph 4 welcomes the efforts made by parties to enhance the participation. This paragraph is approved. Paragraph 5, notes with deep concern. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On this paragraph, Japan wanted to change the word after the lack of, by replacing by mainstreaming means to the implementation of the convention and the strategic plan. Thank you.
So Japan, if I understand correctly, you want to replace adequate with mainstreaming. So it would read and further that the lack of mainstreaming means of implementation, etc.
Madam Chair.
Sorry, have we understood you correctly?
Yes, I would like to change the phrases after the lack of adequate means of implementation has been a persistent obstacle by lack of mainstreaming means to for the implementation of the convention and the strategic plan. That is our suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Zambia, you have the floor. Zambia, you have the floor. I think Zambia was not requesting the floor. Kenya. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. It's really a concern that we would want to replace this phrase to read like the distinguished delegate from Japan is proposing, because it's very clear that parties, as they develop the NBSAMP, make significant attempt and progress in mainstreaming the matters into their development plans. But what has curtailed and continues to curtail the implementation of an achievement of progress in each targets is, essentially the means of implementation, the resources, the funding. And we cannot run away from that, because it will come to haunt us again when we start discussing what is in front of us, the GBF. So we really don't agree with that, and think would want to retain that the lack of adequate means of implementation has been a persistent obstacle. If mainstreaming equally is, it can be an additional, but means the lack of adequate means of implementation has been in terms of funding and other matters. But it can only be additional, but not a deletion of what is there. Chair.
Thank you very much, Kenya. I wonder if we said that the lack of adequate and mainstreamed means of implementation, whether that would be acceptable to the room. European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your proposal for this paragraph. I recall the difficult and lengthy discussions we had at SBI 3 on that matter, and I think this is really a good proposal to bring us all forward. We could agree with adding the word "and mainstreamed" as you just proposed. And otherwise, I would suggest, for the sake of getting forward here and looking forward to the GBF, which will hopefully make things better, we just move on and take the text as it was just proposed by you. But the mainstreamed is fine for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, European Union. Argentina, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would prefer to retain the language as it was. Additionally, if you recall from our conversations in SBI 3, we did not thought it was appropriate to talk about the level of ambition set out in the Aichi targets. But our suggestion was to say, reflecting on the language when the Aichi targets were adopted that called for collective efforts towards the targets to name were not commensurate with the collective efforts needed to achieve the Aichi targets. So replace the level of ambition set out in, for, with the collective efforts needed to achieve the Aichi biodiversity targets. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We see now new text suggestions coming to the table. The way we see this paragraph is as a good compromise of the discussions we previously have had on this. So we would prefer to keep the language as it was presented in the CRP and not add any changes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Norway. Kuwait, you have the floor.
شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة. تؤيد دولة الكويت.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Kuwait wishes to back the original wording of this sentence. Thank you.
All right, dear colleagues, sorry, Canada, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, Canada would support Norway or the compromise that you have suggested. Thank you.
So there are two suggestions for wording. Let me take them one by one. Let me first address the question of the first proposal that was made by Japan and the proposal that I made from the chair to say adequate and mainstreamed means of implementation. I've heard support for that compromise, and I've heard support for the existing language, but it's not clear to me whether the extent to which that is attached to that proposal or the proposal made by Argentina. So can I ask, please, on the question of adequate and mainstreamed, is there any objection to that language? So I see Kenya.
Thank you, Chair. Like I said in my earlier remarks, is that if mainstreaming has to be in this sentence, then it needs to be an additional, like including mainstreaming, but the means, lack of adequate means of implementation will start on its own, and then thereafter in the sentence, we can insert the mainstreaming if that is what the delegates want. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, it seems to me that we're in danger of getting into a lengthy discussion here and not being able to complete this CRP. So with I'm seeking the understanding of the room if we return to the language originally in the CRP in paragraph 5, which I had hoped was a good balance for people. Would that be acceptable? Argentina, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And listening to the room, we would be able to accept as a compromise the text that you suggested with no additions. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. Chile, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor. Thank you, Madam Chair. We also support your suggestion to maintain the text as presented.
Thank you very much, Chile. Can I ask Japan if that would be acceptable?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We agree with that, your suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will then revert to paragraph 5 as originally in the CRP, and that is approved. Thank you so much for your understanding. Paragraph 6. Can paragraph 6 be approved? Paragraph 6 is approved. Paragraph 7. Paragraph 7 is approved. Paragraph 8. Paragraph 8 is approved. Paragraph 9. I'm so sorry. South Africa, you have the floor, and I apologize if I've been moving too fast. South Africa.
Thank you, Chair. It's on paragraph 9. Our suggestion is that on the way it says, encourage parties when developing, updating, or revising their national biodiversity strategies and actions to take into account lessons from the review of progress towards implementation of the Convention and the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2011-2020. We would like to add there at national and global level so that we don't only take into account lessons learned at global level, but also take lessons from our own implementation of the NBSAP and the strategy at ground level. And then as well as there was a missing word S before information there, and then it continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. South Africa, we've taken note of that, and I'm sure that will be acceptable to others. I would also note that in the second line, it should read revising their national biodiversity strategies and action plans. And I see Argentina.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I seek your indulgence, but you were actually trying to move us forward, which is good. But in the case of paragraph 8, we could accept the compromise you were suggesting, but with a full stop after as appropriate, and deleting the rest, which we think it's a particular specification that should, we would need further discussions on that regard if necessary, but in order to avoid the lengthy one, I would suggest to stop at as appropriate. Thank you.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we lose interpretation in a minute, in 1 minute exactly, and I'm taking up that time. So are there any objections to Argentina's proposal? European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to understand the rationale behind the proposal. I thought there is a mentioning of as appropriate already in the piece of text. Probably, if first of all the Secretariat could read the full proposal, and then we could hear from Argentina what the reasoning behind is.
Thank you, European Union. I'm not sure we have time for a lot of reasoning, but my understanding of the proposal is that it would read, paragraph 8 would read, Take note of the lessons from the review of progress towards the implementation of the Convention and the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2011 to 2020, presented in the note by the Executive Secretary, and will consider these lessons as appropriate. Full stop. So while you're considering that, Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We understand that this paragraph is talking about taking note of lessons learned. So we find it difficult to understand that we cannot include the text with a view to enhancing the implementation, because in our view that is in fact talking about us learning from the lessons and what we have experienced in the past. So we would want to keep the para as it was originally in the CRP. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Norway. Argentina, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm a bit surprised that some delegates need for me to explain again what we already explained in SBI. We had lengthy discussions on this regard, but going towards that, if necessary, I would point out that we said that in many cases the lessons that we're taking note of, I would say, we do agree, but we do think that there are other lessons that were learned that are not present there in the note by the Executive Secretary, and just referring that we would enhance implementation only by noting those lessons, in our view, would be too limited, and it will somehow constrain the discussions that we're having in how to do so. For example, there are not many references to resource mobilization in those lessons learned and the need for more resources to do so. And I think it has been a consistent call by developing countries that if we are going to adopt a post-2020 GBF that actually is going to be implemented, there are need for more resources. So we would not like to say that those are the lessons and the only ones that we're going to take into account. And as we do not have another list, and we do not have time to negotiate the list, we would rather delete the reference. But if the delegates want to extend this discussion, we could go into a negotiation of the lessons learned. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. I have a proposal that might satisfy everyone, and in the interests of time and hoping we're not cut off soon. If we added the words inter alia, and we'll consider these lessons inter alia as appropriate with a view to enhancing the implementation, or with a view to contributing to the enhancement of. Argentina, would either of those options be acceptable?
Thank you, Madam Chair, but I'm sorry, but it's not. And in particular, for example, lesson learned, L just says that there is need of an overall substantial increase in total biodiversity-related funding. And we don't find in those lessons learned any reference to the specific needs of developing countries to be able to implement the convention. And we do think that what Aichi shows us is that there's been a difficulty to implement in developing countries. So we do not think that these lessons, even inter alia, if you say inter alia, we are not discussing actually the lessons. We need to be able to have that conclusion somewhere and to be able to come on the same page if we are going to take this as what we will consider to enhance implementation. We are so sorry that we do not have time to do so, but this is a real concern for us. Thank you.
The interpretation will end at this time. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry we have lost translation, as you have heard. Could I ask the room whether it would be possible to approve paragraph 8 with the deletion of those words with a view to enhancing the implementation of the convention, etc. Are there any objections to that? So I see no objections. We will remove those words. In that light, can we move to approve paragraph 9 along the lines we previously discussed, with the addition of the words at national and global level, the addition of the word as and action plans? Any objections to approving paragraph 9? Paragraph 9 is approved. Paragraph 10. Can we approve paragraph 10? Paragraph 10 is approved. Paragraph 11. Paragraph 11 is approved. Can we approve CRP 6 on that basis? CRP 6 is approved. Thank you very much. And thank you for your hard work this morning. I'm sorry we didn't get to adopt the CRP on gender, but we will come back to that. Have a good afternoon.